Have you ever considered that someone's silence might shout louder than words? Have you ever had an inexplicable feeling that someone is longing but carefully concealing it? Sleepless intuition might not be coincidental. More than 80 years ago, Jung discovered that suppressing feelings for someone creates a subconscious connection, a bridge between psyches. There are signs to recognize when a person desperately misses someone but is trying their best to hide it. Silence is not just the absence of words, it is a language that few are given to understand, but the soul recognizes instinctively. A person who seems to have forgotten may be experiencing what Jung called the paradox of suppression. The stronger the attempts to banish an image from thoughts, the deeper it becomes rooted in the subconscious. What will be revealed next is capable of forever changing the perception of absence and contradictory signals. Jung's depth psychology teaches that the subconscious will always find a way to communicate, even when the conscious mind erects barriers. In a world where connections arise and break instantly, there are invisible forces that surpass conscious will. Jung studied these forces for decades, discovering universal patterns that explain the energetic connection with those who are no longer physically present in life. Everyone has probably wondered at least once, is longing for someone a figment of the imagination? Is this feeling really mutual, or is it just a reflection of one's own desires and hopes? However, as Jung argued, true longing goes beyond physical limitations and manifests in concrete actions and signs that cannot be ignored. Synchronicities are not just random coincidences, they are a kind of message that comes at the very moment when thoughts are focused on a specific person. These can be recurring dreams in which that person appears, or an inexplicable feeling of premonition. Jung viewed such phenomena as a manifestation of the subconscious, striving to restore lost emotional connections. Jung discovered a striking truth about the interconnectedness between people, which the conscious mind tries to sever. The subconscious, unlike the conscious mind, never deceives. It may hide behind contradictory behavior, but it always finds ways to express true feelings. A person who experiences longing but hides it is in a constant struggle between the need for reunion and conscious resistance to acknowledging the emptiness that formed after the other person's departure. For Jung, this internal dynamic is a vivid example of the manifestation of the shadow in the human psyche. The shadow is a repository of suppressed emotions, denied desires, and unrecognized aspirations. It has its own ways of communicating, and by learning to decipher them, one can discover truths that cannot be expressed in words. The first clear signal that an individual is experiencing longing but desperately trying to hide it is the chaos in their actions. Carl Jung referred to this as a demonstration of the subconscious duality of feelings. This person may sink into silence for many days or even weeks, avoiding any contact, but then suddenly returns with a burst that sharply contrasts with their previous absence. Such unpredictability is not a simple coincidence or a deliberate game, but rather reflects an internal conflict. On the one hand, their conscious self resists recognizing the need for communication, and on the other, their subconscious persistently strives to satisfy this deep desire to reunite with you. Be attentive and observant. Do you notice how they constantly switch between approaching and distancing themselves? How they may seem completely indifferent today, and tomorrow subtly pry information about you? This discouraging contradiction, as Jung argued, is one of the most convincing signs that deep down they are experiencing a strong longing for you. The second distinguishing sign manifests in the phenomenon that Carl Jung defined as symbolic communication of the subconscious. In a situation where an individual actively suppresses longing, their subconscious begins searching for detours to express suppressed feelings, which leads to the emergence of symbolic gestures. This can be expressed in the exchange of information understandable only to the two of you, or in maintaining common rituals and habits that arose during a period of closeness. Such symbols play the role of bridges connecting two subconscious minds and transmit messages without direct verbal expression. They can manifest in musical works indirectly addressed to the other person, in mentions of shared experiences, or even in carefully preserving objects that evoke memories. The uniqueness of symbolic communication lies in its occurrence beyond conscious perception. A person may not fully realize the reasons for their attachment to certain memories or the constant return to a shared past. In this case, the subconscious interacts directly, using a language that overcomes barriers of pride and conscious resistance. Jung noted that the strength of the connection between people determines the stability of unconscious communication channels, which persist even in physical separation or difficult circumstances. Thus, the observed manifestations are not illusions or subjective projections, but a real communication process occurring at levels inaccessible to rational explanation. According to Jung, psychic energy does not disappear, but merely transforms. The emotional connection that arises between two people continues to exist as an energetic force striving for expression. When a person tries to suppress their feelings, this energy does not dissipate, but accumulates and seeks a way out, manifesting in the analyzed signs. Paradoxically, the stronger the suppression, the brighter the unconscious manifestations become. This process can be compared to trying to hold a ball. Underwater, the more effort applied to keep it down, the more forcefully it will burst to the surface upon release. Surely each of us has encountered a situation where a person shows hidden interest in our lives, skillfully masking it. They may inquire about mutual acquaintances, study profiles on social networks without leaving any trace of their presence. Sometimes they even avoid meetings, knowing about a possible intersection, and then regret the missed opportunity to see you. Carl Jung called this phenomenon the paradox of active distancing. Conscious efforts to maintain physical distance only emphasize the inseparable psychic connection that continues to exist in the subconscious. The most telling sign is the intensity of a person's reaction to the mention of your name or the appearance of a new connection in your life. According to Jung's theory, such a vehement reaction serves as irrefutable evidence that your image still occupies an important place in their subconscious, despite attempts by the conscious mind to deny it. This sign manifests in ways that defy explanation from the perspective of ordinary psychology. Jung explained this by the activation of an emotional complex. When a person tries to suppress longing for you, their reaction to any mention of your name or presence becomes disproportionately strong. This can manifest as sudden irritation, a change in tone of voice, or even a tense silence that seems to freeze the surrounding atmosphere. According to Jung, emotional complexes are clusters of psychic energy charged with emotions that are automatically activated by certain stimuli. The image that a person holds of you has turned into a powerful emotional complex, so strong that they lose control upon hearing your name. It's like touching an unhealed wound, the existence of which they are trying to deny. Have you noticed how some people abruptly change the subject when someone mentions you, or how a storm of emotions briefly flashes across their face before it returns to its usual mask of indifference? This is not a coincidence. Jung argued that such fleeting manifestations are leaks from the subconscious, revealing the truth that a person is trying to hide, even from themselves. The subconscious cannot pretend. When a person deeply longs for you but tries to suppress this feeling, their body and immediate reactions betray them before the conscious mind intervenes. These reactions are genuine and involuntary. It is the truth that manifests before the person has time to control it. The fourth sign, perhaps the most delicate, but at the same time quite eloquent, lies in the regular occurrence of the person's image in dreams and intrusive reflections. Carl Jung, an outstanding researcher of the human psyche, devoted a significant part of his life to the study of dreams, considering them as a direct path to the subconscious. When an individual experiences a strong longing for someone, but consciously suppresses these feelings during the day, their subconscious gains freedom during sleep to express true emotions. If a person has mentioned, even in passing, that you have appeared in their dreams, this can be regarded as an involuntary recognition of your significant role in their inner world. Jung argued that recurring dreams about a specific person reflect the subconscious's attempts to process unresolved emotional conflicts and unconscious desires. However, it is worth paying attention not only to nocturnal dreams. Intrusive thoughts that arise during the day, spontaneous memories or associations related to you are also of great importance. If a person has ever mentioned that a certain event or situation reminded them of you, or that they had a sudden thought about a shared experience, this can be interpreted as a hidden admission. The subconscious always finds loopholes to manifest, especially when suppressed emotional energy reaches high intensity. Jung called this phenomenon psychic compensation. The stronger the conscious mind tries to restrain a certain feeling, the more actively the subconscious will seek ways to express it, finding opportunities to manifest suppressed emotions. The fifth symptom is called reverse projection, a term introduced into scientific use by Carl Jung himself. Its essence lies in the following: an individual consumed by longing for another person, but unwilling to admit it even to themselves, begins to attribute their own experiences to the object of their affection. They may vehemently argue that it is you who cannot break the vicious circle of memories, that it is you who continue to live in illusions and do not strive for new horizons. From a Jungian psychology perspective, such reverse projection is a phenomenon worthy of close study, as it is a mirror reflection of a person's true feelings. By accusing you of experiencing the same emotions as they do, they inadvertently expose their inner conflict to the public. It's like a person pointing at a mirror, naively believing that it's a window into another world. Special vigilance should be exercised when this person persistently and perhaps even aggressively instills in you the idea of your emotional dependence. Jung taught us that the traits in other people that cause us the most irritation are often a reflection of the qualities that we stubbornly refuse to recognize in ourselves. In this context, projection acts as a kind of anti-recognition of true feelings. The most striking indicator of this sign is the accompanying emotional exaltation. Sincere indifference does not need bravado and repeated repetitions. When a person repeatedly tries to convince themselves and others that they have long turned the page and are moving on, they involuntarily signal the exact opposite. The sixth distinctive sign that deserves close attention is what the famous Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung called significant synchronicities. This refers to seemingly random coincidences which, from the point of view of Jungian psychology, are non-causal but deeply meaningful connections that arise between various events in a person's life. In situations where someone experiences acute longing for another person, unexpected meetings often occur, which in reality turn out to be not so accidental. The question arises, did this person appear in those places where, as they knew, the object of their longing could be, while claiming that what happened was just a ridiculous accident? Did they contact mutual friends precisely at the moments when important events were taking place in the other person's life? Did they intersect with them in periods of time that seemed too timely to be a mere coincidence? Jung concluded that the subconscious has truly mysterious ways of establishing connections between people who maintain powerful, energetic bonds, even in cases where the conscious mind actively strives for separation. Such synchronicities are not a manifestation of superstitions or prejudices, but rather a visible embodiment of what Jung called the collective unconscious, tirelessly working to restore meaningful and important connections between people. The special charm of these synchronicities lies in the fact that they operate outside the sphere of conscious will. An individual may sincerely believe that the events taking place are nothing more than mere coincidences, without realizing that their own subconscious is actively organizing these meetings in response to a suppressed desire to reunite with another person. The seventh and perhaps most impressive sign of hidden longing is a personal transformation caused by your absence. Carl Jung developed the concept of individuation, a complex process of psychological integration during which a person becomes a differentiated and holistic personality. When someone experiences deep longing for you but does not have the opportunity to openly express this feeling, they often redirect this powerful emotional energy into significant changes in their life. Perhaps you have noticed how this person began to show interest in things that were important to you, how they began to visit places that you loved, how they began to adopt elements of your personality or values that they had previously criticized. According to Jung's theory, Such integration of the absent person is a way of maintaining connection on a subconscious level. This transformation is not just superficial copying, but a deep assimilation of those aspects of you that resonated in their soul. This is their way of preserving your presence in their life, even if outwardly it seems that they have moved on. Essentially, it's the ultimate manifestation of the depth of his longing for you, so profound that a part of you becomes an integral part of himself. The Jungian understanding of this dynamic leads us to a deep truth. We never truly lose those who have touched our souls. They remain within us, exerting a subtle yet constant influence, especially if the connection was significant. Each of these signs, taken individually, may allow for various interpretations, but when several manifest simultaneously, it creates what Jung would call a constellation of subconscious pointers, revealing a hidden truth. It speaks of a longing so intense that the individual doesn't even allow himself to fully acknowledge it. The most captivating aspect of this dynamic is how it reveals the dualistic nature of the human psyche. Jung was among the first to explore how the conscious mind and the subconscious can pursue entirely different, sometimes even opposing, goals. A person may genuinely believe they have moved on from the past, while their subconscious still harbors a deep connection. This contradiction creates internal tension seeking resolution, and this tension becomes the source of all the signs we've discussed. Unable to express its feelings directly, the subconscious finds roundabout ways to convey its truth through dreams, coincidences, inappropriate emotional reactions, and personality transformations. But there is an even deeper aspect to this dynamic that Jung explored in his most esoteric works, the connection between souls that transcends the boundaries of space and time. According to Jung, when a genuine and profound connection forms between two people, an energetic bridge is created that persists even after the physical relationship ends. This bridge operates on the level of the collective unconscious, that repository of experience shared by all humanity, which Jung considered the deepest layer of our psyche. At this level, physical separation loses its significance. The connection remains, influencing both individuals in ways that ordinary consciousness cannot fully comprehend. Have you ever wondered why some relationships easily overcome any obstacles, whether time or distance? Carl Jung explained this phenomenon through the lens of his theory of archetypal constellations. In his view, when two individuals mutually activate deep-seated archetypes rooted in their psyche, the connection between them transcends ordinary personal interaction and becomes established on the level of the collective unconscious. In this context, it's worth taking a closer look at what it truly means when a person experiences longing but meticulously tries to conceal it. From a Jungian perspective, this phenomenon is not simply about nostalgia or emotional attachment. It involves the manifestation of what Jung defined as the tension between opposites, an internal conflict between the subconscious's deep-seated desires and the resistance exerted by the conscious ego. This tension becomes the source of powerful psychic energy that relentlessly seeks a way to express itself. It is here that our actions and words take on special significance. Each serves as a kind of valve for releasing this suppressed energy, a way for the subconscious to signal feelings that the ego refuses to acknowledge. The suppression of strong emotions is never absolute. Jung noted that the more actively a person tries to restrain powerful emotions, the more ways they find to manifest, often in distorted or symbolic forms, unconsciously associated by the person with their original desire. This observation leads us to a deeper analysis of the dynamics of the anima and animus in the context of enduring interpersonal connections. Carl Jung defined archetypes as complementary facets of the human psyche, where the anima represents the feminine principle in a man and the animus represents the masculine principle in a woman. When a deep connection arises between people on the level of these archetypes, physical separation cannot destroy this fundamental bond. If a woman has awakened a man's anima, she occupies a special place in his psychic space that goes beyond ordinary interpersonal relationships. She becomes a living embodiment of the feminine aspect of his own soul. This is why the man experiences an inexplicable longing, seeking to reconnect with a lost part of himself. Similarly, if a man has activated the animus in a woman, his absence is felt not merely as the loss of a partner, but as a rupture with the masculine aspects of her own psyche that he embodied. Jung emphasized that such archetypal connections are particularly difficult to break as they affect the deepest layers of our identity. Understanding archetypes allows for the correct interpretation of certain signs. When a person displays signs of longing, contrary to their words, it indicates not just denial or emotional ambivalence, but a complex psychological process of integrating and reconciling opposing aspects of the soul. Jung believed that any significant relationship carries an evolutionary purpose for our psyche, and even after parting, it continues to exert influence on an unconscious level. The manifestations of longing that we observe are visible signs of this hidden work. When a person begins to show interest in things or adopt values that were previously associated with another person, it is not simply imitation. Jung called this projection integration, a process in which we begin to recognize and develop in ourselves the qualities that we previously noticed and valued in another. This integration is especially strong when it occurs on an unconscious level. A person may not even realize that they are incorporating aspects of another into their personality in order to maintain a connection. The psyche tries to resolve the conflict between the desire for reunification and the impossibility of its realization. In his later works, Jung explored another intriguing aspect, unconscious telepathic communication. He noted that people connected by deep bonds often experience what he called archetypal communication, a form of connection that goes beyond ordinary channels of communication. Have you ever experienced strong thoughts about someone and shortly thereafter receive a message from them, or have dreams about that person on the same night that they dreamed of you? Jung did not consider such coincidences accidental, but saw them as manifestations of a psychic connection acting on the level of the collective unconscious. Underlying telepathic communication reaches its peak intensity when deep archetypes come into play, as if gates to the collective unconscious open. Carl Jung, an outstanding researcher of the human psyche, left behind an impressive collection of evidence of striking coincidences that occurred between people united by archetypal bonds, even if their life paths had long diverged and physical contact was reduced to zero. Remarkably, this invisible dialogue unfolds beyond conscious control, as if obeying unknown laws of attraction. A person may cherish a firm intention to erase you from their life, erecting impregnable walls of rational arguments to justify the break, but their subconscious, like a faithful guardian, continues to maintain channels of communication with your essence. The role of the shadow in this complex dance of emotions should not be underestimated. Jung viewed the shadow as a hidden repository of suppressed aspects of our personality, qualities, aspirations, and feelings that we refuse to acknowledge as our own. When relationships collapse, especially if this process is accompanied by heartache, we often send fragments of past intimacy into the shadow, as if hiding them in a dark closet. When a person longs for you but carefully hides it, they erect barriers not only between you, but also, first and foremost, between themselves and their true feelings. Their attraction to you becomes a prisoner of the shadow, an aspect of their emotional experience that they are unable to integrate into their conscious self-image. In the intricacies of human relationships, where emotions sometimes play hide and seek, the dynamics of the shadow, as described by Jung, shed light on the paradoxical manifestations of longing. At times, signs that a person longs for you may take the form of dislike or nitpicking criticism. Jung argued that the shadow aspects of our personality are often projected onto others, endowing them with qualities that we subconsciously deny in ourselves. If you notice that someone in your circle occasionally displays unwarranted hostility or criticizes you for traits that are, in fact, inherent in themselves, you may be observing a shadow projection. Behind this mask of dislike lie vulnerable feelings of longing and a need for closeness that the person is unable to acknowledge. The Jungian approach encourages us to penetrate the veil of superficial behavior and recognize the deep motives that drive a person. Realizing that seeming indifference or even hostility may be just a screen hiding suppressed feelings of connection and longing allows us to show more wisdom and compassion in response. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming a whole personality, requires the integration of all fragmented parts of our psyche, including those that we project onto others. When a person longs for you but hides it, they experience an internal conflict that requires resolution. Awareness of this fact opens up horizons of empathetic perception. The individual exhibiting the described traits is experiencing a genuine internal struggle, torn by contradictions between different levels of their psychic being. Their rational self may firmly stand on the positions of separation, while the deep layers of the subconscious retain an inextricable connection with you. From a Jungian psychology perspective, this inner discord seeks resolution through the process of individuation, a path towards personal wholeness. The human psyche is consistently directed towards achieving harmony and authenticity, even if this path is fraught with pain and turmoil. The observed signs are nothing more than manifestations of this profound process, attempts by the psyche to integrate experiences of intimacy and loss into a more holistic and authentic self. As Jung asserted, any significant relationship has a transformative impact on us. Even after its physical conclusion, the relationship continues its transformative work at the soul level. A person longing for you, but concealing it, is undergoing a profound transformation, the extent of which they may not yet fully realize. The most profound aspect of the Jungian approach is that this dynamic is not limited to the personal sphere. It reflects universal archetypal patterns that have evolved throughout human history. Each person's specific experience resonates with ancient myths of separation and longing, of connection and loss, which have been integral to human existence since its inception. The influence of time on this complex dynamic of human relationships cannot be underestimated. Jung insightfully noted that the unconscious does not adhere to the linear progression of time that defines our conscious perception of the world. In the depths of the unconscious, significant connections do not fade with time, as one might expect based on rational considerations. That is why signs of longing for someone may even intensify over time rather than diminish. The unconscious does not seek to overcome archetypal connections. On the contrary, it tirelessly works to integrate them into the overall structure of the psyche. This process can span years or even an entire lifetime. Recognizing this distinct temporal perspective of the unconscious helps to understand why a person may exhibit stronger signs of longing months or years after a breakup, especially if they have actively suppressed these feelings during that time. Understanding these signs also prompts reflection on our own reactions. How should we interpret and respond when it becomes evident that someone misses us but diligently tries to hide it? Jung offers a profound perspective that goes beyond commonplace reactions. Above all, he urges us to recognize that this dynamic is not personal in the conventional sense. It is a manifestation of universal psychic processes that are not limited to individual personalities. When someone misses you but conceals it, they are experiencing a specific manifestation of what Jung called the tension of opposites, a conflict between opposing forces in the psyche. This understanding alleviates the temptation to view this dynamic as something strictly personal, whether as confirmation of one's own importance, he misses me because I'm special, or as rejection, he hides his feelings because he doesn't value the connection. From a Jungian analysis perspective, we are observing the action of archetypal forces, universal patterns that transcend individual personalities. Carl Gustav Jung, a prominent researcher of the human psyche, emphasized that the process of individuation, that is, the striving for psychic wholeness, requires us to deeply acknowledge and respect the archetypal forces that shape our inner self, while not allowing complete fusion with them. In practical terms, this means that we can recognize and understand that a person has certain feelings for us, even if they themselves deny or suppress them, thereby respecting their personal inner process. Such understanding opens the way to profound compassion. A person exhibiting signs of longing or attachment often experiences a tormenting inner conflict. Their inability to openly express their feelings should not be perceived as manipulation or weakness, but rather as a reflection of their current level of psychic maturity and self-awareness. Jung urged us to respond to such situations from the self, the center and foundation of psychic wholeness that unifies the conscious ego and the unconscious. Responding from the self means demonstrating wisdom, compassion, and respect for the unique path of another person. It is important to understand that we are not responsible for resolving the internal conflicts of others. Jung repeatedly emphasized that our influence on another person's individuation process is limited, as each individual must find their own path to wholeness and authenticity. However, Jung also recognized the transformative power of relationships. Within the framework of dialectical relationships, two people can mutually support and facilitate each other's individuation process. This means that our conscious response to the signs that someone misses us can have a significant impact on the psychic development of both individuals. If we decide to maintain an open channel of communication, Jung would advise doing so with full awareness of the archetypal dynamics that unfold in relationships. It is important to understand that another person may perceive us not only as a separate individual but also as an archetypal figure, a projection of their anima or animus. This distinction is crucial for healthy and harmonious relationships. When an individual is turned into a screen for archetypal projections, it means that they are being treated not only as a unique personality, but also as a reflection of aspects of another's psyche that have been transferred onto them. C.G. Jung, the eminent Swiss psychologist and psychiatrist, warned against the danger of complete fusion with these projections, as it can become a serious obstacle to the genuine psychological development of both parties. The most reasonable approach from the perspective of Jungian psychology is to maintain what is known as symbolic consciousness, the ability to simultaneously perceive the literal and symbolic levels of interaction. This approach allows one to address their actions to the real person in front of them while keeping in mind the larger archetypal process that is unfolding at that moment. Jung argued that the relationships with the greatest transformative potential are those in which both participants maintain this symbolic consciousness. When a person realizes that someone is longing for them but trying to hide it, they have the opportunity to choose a response that respects both the literal reality of the circumstances and the deeper symbolic process taking place between them. A conscious response to hidden feelings does not necessarily involve an open confrontation with the person. Jung cautioned against forcibly extracting the contents of the unconscious into consciousness before the psyche is ready to accept it. Attempts to force a person to acknowledge their suppressed feelings may only strengthen their defense mechanisms rather than promote integration. Instead of confrontation, Jung suggested a so-called indirect approach, creating an atmosphere of safety where unconscious content can gradually manifest without threatening the ego. This implies a constant but unobtrusive presence, facilitating symbolic exchange without requiring explicit recognition. A practical method is symbolic amplification, that is, recognizing and responding on a symbolic level without insisting on a literal interpretation. For example, if a person shares a dream involving an observer or mentions a synchronicity connecting them, the symbolic significance should be acknowledged without demanding acknowledgement of hidden feelings. It is important to consider the process of transference when unconscious content is projected onto another person. When someone experiences longing but hides it, an unrecognized transference arises. The observer acquires a symbolic meaning in that person's psyche that goes beyond personal identity. Jung noted that unresolved transference can last a long time, maintaining a state of chronic ambivalence. Resolution requires the dissolution of the transference, that is, the recognition that the projected qualities belong to the person themselves, not to an external object. This process cannot be forced, but it is facilitated by the observer's psychological integration. The more a person integrates their projections, the better they can catalyze the integration of others. All of the above leads us to a key point. How do you personally react to such signals? Jung always emphasized the importance of mental hygiene, that is, a clear distinction between one's own thoughts and feelings and those of others. It is natural to experience a whole spectrum of emotions when you realize that someone, while denying it, misses you. From a sense of satisfaction to disappointment, from hope to utter confusion. Jung would advise us to observe these reactions consciously, perceiving them as valuable insights into our own psychological processes. Emotions that arise in response to such signs of attention often reflect what Jung called emotional complexes, a kind of cluster of psychic energy formed around our early experiences in relationships. Observing one's emotional reactions can help identify aspects of personal patterns of behavior in relationships that require rethinking. Jung taught that every significant encounter with another person is also an encounter with oneself. A person who misses you but does not admit it unwittingly provides an opportunity for self-knowledge and the development of psychological differentiation. It is also necessary to take into account the prospective function of the unconscious, discovered by Jung, which consists in the ability of the unconscious to anticipate future possibilities not yet consciously recognized. At times, signs of another person's longing may indicate not only their current emotions, but also the potential for future relationships that is already being perceived by the unconscious. Jung repeatedly described situations where significant events in relationships were preceded by synchronicities and subconscious signals. The unconscious often anticipates opportunities for meaningful connection even before the conscious mind can clearly articulate them. This understanding calls us to adhere to the principle of an open mind, as Jung advised, and not to rush to definitive conclusions. Instead of categorical interpretations like, "He misses me because I'm still important," or "He denies his feelings out of fear," it's better to maintain a receptive curiosity about the unfolding mystery. Jung highly valued the transcendent function of the psyche, the ability to create new and unexpected syntheses from seemingly contradictory elements. A person concealing their longing is in the process of internal tension that will ultimately find resolution through this very transcendent function. The Jungian approach encourages us to consider the broader archetypal significance of this dynamic. When someone longs but hides it, we witness a modern manifestation of archetypal patterns that have existed throughout human history. Jung found these same patterns in myths, fairy tales, and spiritual traditions of various cultures. The theme of suppressed longing, a denied but persistent connection, appears in many cultural narratives, from the Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice to medieval legends of tragic love. These archetypal patterns show that what is being experienced is not just a personal dynamic or a peculiarity of a specific relationship, but a manifestation of a universal human model rooted in the collective unconscious, a common substrate of the human psyche that transcends individual experience. Awareness of the archetypal aspect can open new horizons of understanding, expanding the boundaries of perception. In this context, interaction goes beyond a simple clash of emotions of a specific individual. There is a touch with an archetypal scenario, uniting personal experience with the experience of many generations. Jung encourages us to consider such situations not only through the prism of psychology, but also from the point of view of meaning and purpose. From a Jungian analytical perspective, recurring life collisions, especially those colored by strong emotions, should be seen as a stimulus for spiritual growth. In a situation where a person experiences longing but hides their feelings, both they and those around them have an opportunity for personal development. The internal conflict between subconscious desire and conscious denial opens the way for self-knowledge and wholeness. For those around, the perception of contradictory signals becomes a stimulus for the development of intuition and wisdom in interpersonal relationships. Carl Jung envisioned the process of individuation as a heroic journey, requiring courage, unwavering honesty, and a willingness to face one's internal conflicts. Someone who secretly longs for you is evading an important stage of this journey, unwilling to acknowledge and accept their true feelings. Your response to such behavior becomes an integral part of your own individuation. Jung argued that meaningful relationships serve as mirrors, reflecting those aspects of our personality that require awareness and acceptance. Your reaction to the person hiding their longing highlights important aspects of your attitude toward rejection, ambivalence of feelings, and emotional sincerity. Special attention should be paid to your emotional experiences caused by these contradictory signals. Do you strive for clarity and resolution of the situation? Do you feel disappointed by the denial of another person? Or perhaps you feel compassionate curiosity about their inner experiences? Jung would advise you to consider these feelings as a window into those corners of your psyche that need attention and integration. The most intense emotional responses often indicate the presence of so-called complexes, clusters of psychic energy formed under the influence of early experiences and continuing to affect behavior in the present. For example, the feeling of being overwhelmed by the contradictory signs of attention from someone may indicate the existence of a personal complex related to the desire for clarity and certainty in interpersonal relationships. An attraction to complex and ambiguous interactions may reflect a deep need to connect with someone who is emotionally unavailable. Carl Jung taught that complexes should not be seen as obstacles to self-improvement. On the contrary, they are integral elements of the psyche that need to be recognized and integrated. By identifying and working through the complexes that are activated in the context of certain relationships, it is possible to transform a potentially negative experience into a stimulus for profound personal growth. As a practical tool for such inner work, Jung suggested using the method of active imagination, which involves a conscious dialogue with images and emotions arising from the depths of the unconscious. In moments when a person's thoughts are occupied by the actions of another who is exhibiting contradictory signals, this technique can be used to explore the deeper meaning of what is happening. Imagine a mental conversation with this person where each of you sincerely and openly shares your true feelings. What will surface in this dialogue, free from denial and pride? Carl Jung argued that such exercises often reveal profound insights that previously eluded conscious perception. Another method proposed by Jung is close attention to dreams. Dreams in which this person appears or reflects the dynamics of your relationship can shed light on the hidden meaning of your connection. Jung viewed dreams as messages from the unconscious, as direct signals from the depths of the human psyche. If this person appears in your dreams, try to capture the emotional atmosphere of the dream, the symbols that arise, and your own reaction in the dream. According to Jung, these elements can reveal aspects of your relationship that your consciousness has not yet fully grasped. It is also important to consider the Jungian perspective on the passage of time and the development of this dynamic. Jung noted that deep psychic processes are subject to their own rhythm and temporality, which often do not coincide with our conscious expectations or social norms. Resolving the contradiction between unconscious desire and conscious denial may take much longer than our rational mind deems reasonable. Jung cited examples where such relationship patterns found their completion only after years or even decades, when the consciousness of both people matured enough to integrate this experience. This awareness calls us to develop what Jung called patience with the mystery, the ability to remain open to a process whose full resolution and meaning may not be immediately clear. Thoughtfulness and unhurriedness were particularly revered by Carl Jung, and this patience represents a kind of wisdom that goes against accepted norms. The Jungian approach also offers a unique perspective on the seeming paradox in the behavior of a person who, while longing, tries to hide it. Instead of seeing this contradiction as a source of confusion or manipulation, Jung urged us to recognize in it a reflection of a fundamental truth about human nature. We are inherently paradoxical and capable of simultaneously experiencing mutually exclusive feelings and desires. Jung called this ability the transcendent function, the ability of the psyche to hold and ultimately integrate seemingly irreconcilable opposites. When a person experiencing longing tries to hide it, they are in a state of tension between opposing feelings which ultimately strive for integration through this transcendent function. Recognizing this paradoxical nature of human experience can save us from having to seek simplified solutions or resort to reductive explanations. The complex dynamics of relationships should not be reduced to a simple loves me or loves me not. It is necessary to respect it in all its complexity, seeing in it a reflection of the multifaceted nature of the human psyche. This perspective allows for a deeper understanding of the persistence and recurrence of certain life scenarios. C.G. Jung, a keen researcher of the human psyche, noted that mental patterns that are not fully conscious and assimilated tend to be reproduced time and time again, and with each repetition their influence only increases until finally the consciousness realizes their true meaning and assimilates the lessons contained within them. If an individual repeatedly encounters similar situations in various relationships, this may indicate the existence of a so-called autonomous complex, as Jung defined it. This complex is a kind of energetic core of the psyche, functioning independently of conscious will and steadily drawing a person into certain patterns of interpersonal relationships. The first step towards integrating these subconscious patterns is to become aware of them. It is not without reason that Jung once said, "What you deny submits you, what you accept transforms you." Full acceptance of both the signs of someone's longing and your own reaction to these manifestations triggers a process of deep change, capable of freeing both sides from the unconscious repetition of destructive patterns. Jung considered this process of awareness and integration to be the cornerstone of serious psychological work. It is not just about superficially correcting external circumstances or trying to change another person's behavior. The task is to transform one's own relationship with those archetypal models that are activated in the psyche under the influence of the current situation. Internal self-exploration opens horizons for discovering what Carl Jung defined as the meaning of purposefulness in life experience. Even the most complex and painful relationships can become a catalyst for the development of the true self. From this point of view, a person hiding their longing involuntarily provides an opportunity for deep self-knowledge and personal growth. Jung calls for reflection on the fact that there are no random encounters in significant relationships. Perhaps the people who touch the most intimate aspects of our personality appear in life to facilitate the process of individuation. Jung considered this path to authenticity and integrity to be the key task of human existence. Realizing this can radically change the perception of the situation. Instead of seeing the duality of another person as a problem to be solved, one can recognize it as part of a global process that contributes to the evolution of consciousness on both sides. Jung reminded us that the path to mental integration is rarely direct and comfortable. It is often associated with periods of confusion, contradiction, and apparent regression. A person who longs but denies it is on their own non-linear path to greater wholeness and authenticity. In Jungian psychology, the most fascinating thing is the realization that hidden longing is not limited to personal experiences. When a person feels a strong need for someone but tries to hide it, they encounter what Jung called soul hunger, a deep longing that goes beyond a simple desire to be near a specific person. This longing touches on fundamental questions of the meaning of life and existential purpose. Jung argued that the most significant connections between people activate what he called the archetypal search for wholeness, the human psyche's inherent desire for integration and completeness. When someone deeply longs but suppresses this feeling, they are struggling not only with the desire to see a particular person, but also with what that person has come to symbolize in their personal mental development. This understanding allows us to take a fresh look at the signs of suppressed longing, inconsistency in behavior, veiled hints, inadequate reactions. All of these are manifestations of an internal conflict that goes beyond interpersonal relationships and touches on archetypal aspects of human existence. Jung suggests considering these phenomena using a symbolic approach, recognizing that a specific person and the relationship with them carry deeper symbolic meanings related to universal themes of separation, longing, loss, and the possibility of rebirth. From this point of view, the signs of hidden longing acquire special significance, going beyond the ordinary. They become not just a reflection of personal experiences, but a manifestation of the eternal drama that has been played out in human relationships throughout history. Jung, analyzing the myths, beliefs, and cultural traditions of different peoples, found confirmation of this archetypal background of human feelings. It is this archetypal nature that gives such situations such emotional depth and stability. It is not only about personal likes and dislikes, but also about deep mental processes associated with the collective experience of mankind. Jung urged us to treat such situations not only as personal difficulties that need to be resolved, but also as an opportunity to gain special wisdom, a perspective of the soul. This perspective allows you to see a deeper meaning and potential benefit even in the most complex and painful experiences. From the soul's point of view, a person who hides their longing involuntarily becomes a participant in the process of another person's individuation, providing them with the opportunity to develop a differentiated consciousness. This concept, introduced by Jung, means the ability to perceive and respond to different levels of reality simultaneously, to see hidden motives and understand the true feelings behind words and actions. Differentiated consciousness endows the ability to perceive not only the literal manifestations of a particular person's longing, but also the deeper symbolic subtext that reflects and activates archetypal models in one's own psyche. Carl Jung argued that the development of this ability to multi-level perception leads to an expansion of consciousness, enriching our understanding and allowing us to find meaning and purpose even in the most confusing and contradictory circumstances. This expansion of consciousness frees us from the obsessive need for simplified solutions and definitive answers. Instead, it becomes possible to consider the question, what does it really mean that this person misses me but hides it? As a stimulus for continuous exploration, rather than as a problem requiring immediate resolution or classification. Jung especially valued the ability to stay in the question, a willingness to dwell in uncertainty and ambiguity, seeing it as fertile ground for psychic growth. When someone displays conflicting signs of attention, they are, without realizing it, offering an opportunity to develop this valuable capacity. Remaining in a state of questioning does not indicate a passive attitude or indecisiveness. On the contrary, Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology Carl Jung considered it a manifestation of active psychic participation, requiring considerable courage and deep awareness, as opposed to a hasty pursuit of certainty or ready-made solutions. This willingness to immerse oneself in uncertainty is particularly valuable in situations where we encounter signs of longing in another person, carefully concealed by them. This approach allows us to respond with what Jung defined as psychic flexibility, that is, the ability to adjust our actions based on the level of awareness and emotional openness that the other person may offer at any given moment. Jung noted that many significant relationships in their dynamics go through various stages of rapprochement, distancing, and possible reunion. These stages do not always follow a clear sequence, often including periods of ambiguity and conflicting signals as the individuals involved in the relationship sort out their own internal experiences. The Jungian approach suggests viewing these stages not as unfortunate setbacks or a source of confusion, but as natural components of a process in which two independent consciousnesses engage in a dialogue about the relationship, honoring both their mutual connection and the individuality of each person. Of particular importance is the concept of the natural rhythm of psychic processes, introduced into scientific discourse by Carl Jung. Modern society, oriented towards instant results and quick problem-solving, often ignores the fact that deep psychic transformations are subject to their own internal laws of time. Attempts to artificially force these processes, according to Jung, are fraught with negative consequences, whether it be increased resistance or apparent regression. In the context of human relationships, a situation where one partner experiences attraction but denies it indicates an internal transformation is underway, the pace of which cannot be externally controlled. Jung called for the development of sacred patience, the ability to respectfully acknowledge the natural course of psychic development, both in oneself and in others. This patience should be understood not as passive resignation, but as an active recognition of the inner wisdom of the psyche and its striving for wholeness. Jung drew an analogy between psychic transformation and natural processes such as the germination of a seed or the formation of a crystal. These phenomena develop in accordance with their own internal laws of time, and any intervention aimed at acceleration can damage their integrity. Thus, relationships characterized by conflicting signals are undergoing a period of psychic crystallization, subject to their own internal rhythm. How should one proceed, exercising greater prudence, when it becomes evident that someone is experiencing longing but persistently denies it? Carl Jung, drawing on his deep understanding of the human psyche, offers a number of practical recommendations. Above all, he emphasized the importance of conscious presence, which implies adopting a position of sensitive receptivity that is characterized by neither intrusiveness nor rejection.